Imagine walking into a village where the houses outnumber people. The windows are cracked, roofs sagging, and silence hangs so heavy, it feels like you've wandered into a ghost story. Now imagine this isn't an isolated case. This is Japan, a country with more than 8 million abandoned homes. Yes, 8 million. While the rest of the world is scrambling to find solutions for housing shortages, Japan is dealing with a different crisis. Too many houses, not enough people. But why is this happening? And what do these empty houses reveal about Japan's changing society? More intro. Japan's housing crisis isn't just about a surplus of homes, it's a window into the complex interplay of demographics, culture, and economics. These empty properties, known as akiya, are scattered across both rural and urban areas, representing a significant and growing challenge for Japan's future. This phenomenon isn't just about vacant houses, it's about vanishing communities, generational divides, and a society grappling with rapid change. Today, we're diving deep into why millions of homes are left to crumble, how this crisis developed, and what it means for Japan, and maybe even the world. 1. Aging population and declining birth rates. While many countries dream of sprawling suburbs and thriving rural communities, Japan is experiencing the opposite, a population decline so steep that some towns are literally disappearing. Take the village of Nagoro in Shikoku, once home to hundreds of residents. Today, fewer than 30 people remain. In an eerie attempt to preserve its memory, a local artist filled the village with life-size dolls representing the former residents. For every human who lives there, there are 10 dolls and dozens of abandoned homes. Japan's population has been declining since 2011, and it's projected to drop from 125 million today to about 88 million by 2065. The fertility rate stands at just 1.34 children per woman, far below the replacement rate of 2.1. Simultaneously, nearly 30% of the population is over 65 years old, the highest proportion of elderly citizens in the world. This aging population means a growing number of homes are being left vacant as their owners pass away. In rural areas, this problem is particularly acute because younger generations are leaving for opportunities in urban centers, leaving their parents' homes to fall into neglect. This demographic time bomb is at the heart of Japan's akiya crisis. As the population shrinks and ages, more homes will inevitably be abandoned, creating ghost towns and reshaping the nation's housing landscape in ways that are both unprecedented and irreversible. 2. Urban migration. Why stay in a rural village when the bright lights of Tokyo or Osaka are calling? For decades, young Japanese have been answering that call, leaving behind empty homes and fading communities. Take Yamaguchi Prefecture in western Japan as an example. Once a thriving hub of agriculture and small-town life, it now faces severe depopulation. Young people are flocking to cities for better job opportunities, education, and modern lifestyles, leaving rural areas with aging populations and an increasing number of abandoned homes. In fact, as of recent estimates, Yamaguchi's population has been steadily declining by about 1% annually. Urban migration is not a new phenomenon in Japan. It began in earnest after World War II, when rapid industrialization created countless opportunities in cities. By the 1970s, the trend of rural depopulation had already accelerated due to economic shifts and lifestyle changes. Today, over 91% of Japan's population resides in urban areas, a statistic that reflects the heavy concentration of jobs, infrastructure, and educational institutions in metropolitan regions. Cities like Tokyo alone are home to nearly 14 million people, and when including the greater metropolitan area, this figure skyrockets to over 37 million, making it the most populous urban area in the world. This rural to urban exodus has led to stark contrasts. Urban centers like Tokyo and Osaka are overcrowded, with housing markets stretched thin and living costs among the highest globally. Meanwhile, rural areas are dotted with abandoned properties, referred to as akiya. some of which have been vacant for decades. A 2018 government survey estimated that there were over 8 million IKEA across Japan, with the number expected to rise as the population continues to shrink. Urban migration has thus created a dual housing crisis in Japan: overcrowded, expensive cities and increasingly deserted rural regions. This imbalance is a key driver of the IKEA crisis, highlighting not just the economic challenges of rural life, but also the cultural and societal shifts that make bridging the divide between urban and rural Japan a growing challenge. 3. Cultural attitudes toward old homes. In many countries, old homes are seen as charming or historic. In Japan, they're often seen as burdens or even bad luck. Let's talk about tatame and han, the Japanese concepts of outward appearance versus inner feelings. In Japan, there's an unspoken cultural preference for things that look new and pristine. This extends to houses, where older properties are often considered less desirable. The stigma against old homes partly stems from their construction. Many houses built after World War II were designed for speed, not longevity. Known as disposable homes, they often have a lifespan of just 30 years. Additionally, Japanese culture is steeped in superstitions about death and misfortune. A house where someone has died, particularly by suicide or violent means, is often seen as tainted, further reducing its appeal. Renovating an old home is also less common in Japan compared to other countries. High costs, strict building codes, and the preference for modern amenities make new construction a more appealing option for many buyers. These cultural attitudes toward housing perpetuate the cycle of abandonment. Instead of preserving or renovating older homes, they're left to decay, adding to the growing number of IKEA and reinforcing Japan's housing paradox. 4. The inheritance dilemma. What would you do if you inherited a house you didn't want or couldn't afford to keep? For many Japanese families, this isn't a hypothetical question. It's a harsh reality. Take Hiroshi, a middle-aged man living in Osaka. When his parents passed away, he inherited their countryside home in Akita Prefecture. At first, he considered selling it, but there were no buyers interested in the property. Renovation costs were prohibitively high, far exceeding the house's market value. Maintaining it wasn't feasible either, with property taxes and upkeep adding up quickly. Ultimately, he decided to let it sit empty, joining the ranks of Japan's abandoned homes. This story reflects a broader issue. Japanese inheritance laws generally require heirs to accept responsibility for any property they inherit, including its associated costs, such as taxes and maintenance. While heirs can legally refuse an inheritance,